take 2 minutes to put it on our YouTube channel as well. Right. Okay, so we are ready to start. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on branding strategies for exports, winning brand strategies for global markets. And this session basically aims to dwell on the importance of branding, especially when you are competing in an international market for the benefit of Indian companies, and also talking about some of the most potent and practical branding approaches that a company can adopt to succeed in the global marketplace, especially when we have a very volatile and constantly changing market. So while branding is one of the most important elements of an organization's performance, it is also among the most misunderstood. A brand is much more than a logo and colors in the name. You can say that it's a representation of the entire identity of an organization and what it promises to its customers. And in a consistently volatile market, it is arguably the ultimate insurance against obsolescence and failure. As we are well aware, MSMEs account for nearly 50% of India's exports, and it's well recognized that they have a huge growth potential. However, as a report by the Ministry of MSMEs confirms, marketing is one of the critical areas where MSMEs in India face problems, including product differentiation, brand building, customized tailor-made services, clientele building, after-sales servicing, etc. While it was once felt that branding had relevance largely for B2C business models, experts have highlighted, especially with rise in digitization, that it's also relevant in the B2B space. For instance, your digital identity follows you wherever you go. Today, if you don't have a digital identity, you cannot succeed in either of B2B or B2C. So with digital platforms and a strong digital presence becoming critical, branding helps you build a connect with customers wherever they are in the world and establish a trust for the company's products and services. So we have a very interesting panel, cross-disciplinary panel, which will discuss today the changes in the international business landscape, growing relevance of branding, importance of nation sectoral branding in the success of company, practical strategies for Indian companies and MSMEs especially. At this juncture, I am happy to welcome the panelists which we have, and I would like to introduce them to you. We have with us Dr. Vivek Suneja, Head and Dean North Campus, University of Delhi, member of Committee for Advanced Trade Research, TPCI. Dr. Rajendra Prasad Sharma, Professor and Head MDP Division, IIFT, Kolkata, and member again Committee for the Advanced Trade Research, TPCI. Sonam Kasera, who's CEO of Kamrup Tea Company. Asha, Sampath, founder of Brand Horizon, which is a marquee brand consulting firm, and Madhumita Sarkar, Guha, founder and CEO of Luxe Living. So, to start off this session, I would like to dwell first on the theoretical aspect and ask Dr. Vivek Suneja, what, sir, would you like to say on the importance of branding and what a brand communicates to your customer? Dr. Suneja, sir, over to you.
Right. Am I audible now, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinaji. This is an extremely important topic, and especially for exports. I think brands play a huge role, and I think Indian exporters, both in goods and services, sometimes tend to underestimate the importance of brands, hence the importance of the discussion here. So theoretically, what is a brand? What does it do? So essentially, brands play three roles. And for different products, the mix of those three roles may be different. So I think it's important in conceptual terms to understand what those three roles are. Brand is essentially a reputation. And it can do three things. It can provide information. So there's an information role. It can assure consumers of the quality of the product. So there's a quality assurance role. And finally, it can provide symbolic value. There's a symbolic role. So if you look at those three in turn, first look at the information role. So obviously a brand will provide information about the product, what the features are, what price is it priced at, availability, distribution channels. So you get to know about the information aspects when the brand advertises or uses some way to promote itself. But then there's a quality assurance role. And in marketing and economics, theoretical marketing or economics, we distinguish between three categories of goods. And I think this is fairly critical. We say, depending on whether you can assess quality pre-purchase or post-purchase, there are three categories of goods. Surge goods, experience goods, and credence goods. So what's the difference? Surge goods are goods whose quality can be assessed by consumers prior to purchase. So if you're buying, say, flowers offline, right, in physical mode, then by looking at the flowers, inspecting them, you get an idea they're fresh or not, or even vegetables, partially you can understand whether vegetables are fresh or not. So you don't need brands if you're buying flowers, in physical mode. But if you're buying flowers in online mode, since you can't inspect the flowers online, in that case, you might have to rely on the reputation of the brand. So, then it will become an experience good. So what is an experience good? A good whose quality can be known only after consuming the good. So all consumer durables like washing machines, televisions, computers, phones, only after you use them. And they're supposed to be lasting and giving you service over a period of time. That's why they call it durable. So if a washing machine is supposed to last 5 years, say, only after 3 years, 4 years, do you know whether it was a good buy? But you have to buy it now. So how do you assess? How do you buy, say, one product over another when you don't know what the quality is after 4 years? And therefore, you'll again rely on the reputation of the brand. Also applies to services, haircuts. I mean, only after you had a haircut, do you know whether the haircut was good or not. Then there are credence products, where you can't know the quality even after consuming the product. And they're pervasive. Take a health tonic. Did it really do you good? Take legal advice. Maybe in Indian legal systems, a case takes 15 years, 10 years to come to conclusion. So did you hire the best lawyer? At the end of 15 years, do you know whether that's the best bargain you got? Maybe if you hired another lawyer, he might have done more poorly or better. Medical advice is classic. There's so much information asymmetry between the supplier of the product, which is the doctor, and you, the consumer. So do you really need that CAT X-ray? Do you really need that pathology test? You really never know. So again, the reputation of the brand of the hospital or the doctor matters. So quality assurance mechanism is a powerful function that brands perform, and you need to trust the brand. So you need to earn that trust, which is what a brand does. And finally, a symbolic role. Many products we buy not just for their functional value or even the quality assurance properties, but they confer symbolic value. They enhance either a self-esteem or a status. So you buy a Mercedes car, partially because it's a great car. It also has good quality, but also because maybe others don't have it. So you can flaunt it. Maybe it adds to your status. And products like L'Oreal shampoo advertise you're worth it. So they're playing not so much on status as much on self-esteem. So brands play all these important roles. I mean, they are not just a luxury. The reason people are willing to pay for a branded product over a non-branded product, because they serve as quality assurance, information, and finally symbolic roles.
Right, right. Thank you, sir, for that initial insight. And I would like to put this up upfront because this is a very common thing which we have heard from businesses. Businesses may tend to view branding as a cost rather than an investment, especially when the going gets tough. when you are at a loss to understand which costs to keep and which costs to let go. So, what is your view on this? How do companies resolve this conundrum?
Yeah,
And is branding a cost or an investment?
right. I think that's a critical question, and I think that partially stems because often people don't understand what brands are doing in terms of these three functions. Often brands are supposed to be, they're just a logo or the advertisement, but that logo advertisement is providing a service to the consumer. You can't sell a washing machine or a mobile phone unless people are convinced about the quality of a product. And this is an experience good. So unless you have a brand, nobody will buy a new entrant in any of these categories. So it's an investment. It's not just a cost. All investments cost money. That's why they call investments, but they'll pay. So, if Panasonic or any other Apple establishes a quality role, a reputation, it will pay. And if you don't, if you are in the Micromaxes of the world or the Lenovo's of the world, then you will not get the price you can command. Which brings us to the fact that often Indian exports are stuck in commodity markets. And if you want to distinguish yourself from the rest of the competition, then either in symbolic terms or in quality assurance terms, unless you brand, unless you assure, and there are various ways of assuring quality and creating images. There are all kinds of digital opportunities now, which I'm sure a lot of people will talk about. All kinds of innovative ways to manage a reputation. But reputation you must manage, both for quality, information, and symbolism. And if you do that, then you get a price premium. Otherwise, it's a commoditized market, dog eats dog. So most of Indian exports, whether in pharmaceutical, generics, auto components, even services, I mean, low-end coding activity that we're doing, which is now threatened by AI, unless we move to a distinctive image which is backed up by its symbolism or its quality assurance or features, then we will be stuck in this commodity trap. And that's a very low premium, high price competition market. And given the recession now that's coming, given increasing competition, countries looking inwards, I think branding becomes extremely important. We don't want to get stuck as a nation in commodity exports. We need to move up into differentiated premium products backed by brands.
Right. Thank you, sir. Continuing on that note of, a nation branding itself, which is a very interesting concept. And, often when we are buying a particular product, at least in our mindset, it is important to understand, to know which nation it originates from and, depending on the kind of product. So, Dr. Sharma, I would like to ask you, what is the role of branding in a company's success and how these different levels of branding come into play? How the nation is branded, how it is perceived, how the sector or the company, how do they, play a role in success in the current volatile environment?
Huge role, because a brand is, as Dr. Suneja clarified, not just a logo or a symbol, but it's a promise. So to the importers, buyers, we are making a promise and we have to live that promise. Okay, so when we do not live that promise, it's not that only the exporting company's brand name is suffering. In that case, we make a dent on India's brand image also. So to that extent, the largest brand is made in India, the country brand. If I cannot make it, I can definitely spoil it. I mean, every MSME this applies. And many unscrupulous small and companies which are thinking short term, they do that knowingly and unknowingly. So it's pretty important a question, Viratji. Thank you for asking that. So since you are asking me to outline the levels of branding, I would say, okay, product brand, company brand, everything can wait. But everybody who is into the international business engagement, professionally, they themselves need a branding, people branding as an exporter, as a professional. What I mean by this is that they need certain ethos, pathos, certain, they need to convey an expertise that, they are the right people to, do business with the foreign companies. And we need to communicate that competence, the ethical code of conduct. So the exporters' value system, the attitude, the knowledge, the skills, these are the first important ingredient in branding our, efforts abroad. Then we can move to the product branding. There, of course, in B2B, it can be ingredient branding. Like, Intel, never people bought an Intel, but, the computer sellers, they said it has Intel inside. You'll be surprised, in one of the premium clubs, Barf ka gola wala, the ice gola, they had put a board there that we use Bisleri water for making ice. And now this small communication, and in fact, it has led to people's willingness to pay much premium, higher premium for this product. So Suneja Sahab rightly touched upon that. People's willingness to pay for an apple probably communicates that it has a brand or something like that. And then comes the organizational branding. And in case of services, again, Dr. Suneja highly focused on the credence quality, services, etc. So in case of services, the organization, the corporate brand image is also the service brand. Like Infosys, Wipro, and TCS, Tata, these three are major international brands from India, and all of them are from services sector. Right? So organizational branding, of course, is important. And then, yes, of course, the industry branding like Ayurveda, IT, medical tourism, textiles, Madhumita is here, tea industry, Sonam is here. So that industry branding. And like, Sri Lanka, Dilma, and then Kenya has done industry branding, tea branding, coffee branding. And then this sectoral branding, like we have done for IT industry, NASCOM has done a major work there. And then, of course, the country branding. So these are some of the levels, like an onion. We need to work on branding at every constituent, every level, including the exporters themselves. Absolutely. Did I completely answer your question, or any component remains there?
No, sir, absolutely. You've answered my question. But, when it comes to investments, I was asking this to Vivek sir as well. How much is too much? What kind of a budget can MSMEs maintain to build their brand equity and niche in the market? And, how do they decide on how much they should be spending? What should be their, target goal or something? Are there some frameworks which we can provide them?
So first of all, I would start answering this question this way, that if we examine the basket of, or the composition of goods and services from India, we can easily trace that we are an under-marketed, under-branded country. We export more commodities. We can make a list and we'll say tea, but we will not say Kamrup tea or Darjeeling tea or this, okay? Something like that. So there's a long way to go for us, right? If we market a commodity, it commands low respect, low love. So the emotional engagement is also not there. But when we brand, it commands a premium because people respect that as a brand. For example, petroleum. But the moment you say IOC, Servo, Supreme, or XP 90, 95 or 100 or something like that, people are willing to pay a premium. This is the first thing. And regarding investment and expenditure, people consider that it is an expenditure, but it is not. It is an investment. Why? Because the cost is recovered well from what you get in return from the consumers. Yeah, so you don't have to promote much, you don't have to advertise much, people remember it, it has memorability, it has flexibility, it has relevance, so it lends a lot of parts. But then the question is, your key question is that how can MSMEs do it who are, bootstrapped or do not have the budgets for it? So, well, today in the digital world, there are techniques, there are approaches which they can use. For example, keyword advertising, search engine optimization, digital marketing, digital tools, which do not cost much, to be honest. If I use inbound marketing, just a small banner ad where I say, for example, क्या आपके दांतों में झंझनाहट होती है? Like Sensodyne does it. And those who have sensitive teeth and those who experience that sensation, they happen to click there. Then it quickly offers them some kind of a hook that would you like to check whether you have sensitive teeth? So basically the key lies in brand building. The key lies in engaging your customers at every stage. Now, if a customer says, yes, I would like to check whether I have sensitive teeth. So I answer 3-4 questions, and then you tell me that I have sensitive teeth, and then you offer me free doctor's appointment or consultation, and then I give you my data and something like that. I think our MSMEs also need a lot of data about the foreign buyers this way, and this can be done in a very, very low cost way. Absolutely. We are not talking about heavy advertising in terms of print and broadcast media like TV and Viratji. No way, because these guys, they cannot do that. But I'm sure, if you do not do any branding or communicate that, then it would be like winking at somebody in the dark. Only you know what you are doing, the other party will not know. So I think, you need to spread awareness, and there is no shortcut to that. Yes, we can find low cost ways of communicating. Yes, we can have, if you serve a sensational storytelling to media in the foreign country where you are launching your product, I'm confident they will publish it. They will thank you for that, because media is also starving for stories they look for. Yeah, so good content, it's because everybody is talking of content marketing these days. Good stories, and that to an Indian story of an Indian product, the way it has been produced, manufactured. If we communicate that, then I think it can be done free without advertising, using a lot of publicity and PR techniques and approaches.
Right. Absolutely, sir. In fact, as India Business and Trade, we are also looking forward to see, showcase more and more of these success stories from India. And it's a passion actually to, meet entrepreneurs and see their success journeys. So also I'm seeing some people raising their hands. I would request you to put your questions in the chat box so I can take them up at the end of the session. But coming from the point of view of entrepreneurs, I would now like to come to Sonam Kasera. And I would like to ask you, Sonam, how brand building has contributed to the success of Kamrup tea in your experience?
So I would like to share my experience. Firstly, as Sir correctly said, Suneja Sir and Sharma Sir, that branding is just not about a name or just not about anything. It encompasses the entire picture, the entire identity. So if you go by our name, we are named as Kamrup tea. Why? Kamrup, if you all know, is a very important, it's a holy district in state of Assam. And the product what we export is Indian teas. Specifically, if we again narrow down our product, it is Assam tea. So when we communicate this to a global buyer that we are Kamrup tea, the moment they are like, oh yes, Assam, so your product is Assam tea. And now, even into B2B, branding was not something which has come now. Basically, in the recent time, if I may so, we have brandified the word branding. And for B2B, how branding has helped us, like I would like to share our story. Our focus has always been on quality. We have not focused on volumes. We have been passionate in serving quality Indian teas. And with this, we have, focused like how have we branded ourselves? Like we have laid special emphasis on quality of the product. Apart from that, even on smaller details like packaging. For this, I have an interesting story to share. Like tea is basically not a commodity, it is an art. So the way we could get more into success into B2B is that we innovated with our packaging. Unlike my other Indian peers group, we kind of developed a different kind of packaging even for the B2B clients. Our product was always quality oriented. We knew which segments we were hitting for. And with this packaging, we had supplied teas to one of our Russian buyers. So the moment the packaging of the Russian buyers, fortunately on that particular day, the owner of that super chain had visited his warehouse. So he was astonished to see how we have packaged and we ship our goods. The first question he asked to his warehouse in charge, is this an Indian tea company shipping goods? He said, yes. Well, I saw Sri Lankans being so particular. So that was the brownie point for us. Then the next question, what he said was that a company, an Indian company, which lays emphasis on smaller details like packaging, which is hardly anything. So I wonder, so the tea inside it, the product, they would have given so much importance to it. So as a result of this, when you pay attention, and building a brand is just not done overnight. It is a constant process. So you have to have faith, and you have to live on to it. So, this really this helps you, like for us, like we have focused on quality, commitment, and delivering a fair value of the product. So this has helped us to grow and create as a love lock with our customers. So we are growing with our customers, and through them, we are also being connected to other B2B customers. We have lived upon our commitment. So it is a decade-long relations what we are enjoying with our buyers. We get premium prices. For an example, for the same buyer who's buying from others also, but when it comes to us, they rely on us for introducing new products. They pay us premium, and we are always their preferred clients. So branding definitely does help.
Okay, Sonam, we talked about nation branding. I just want to know your view. Is there something which all stakeholders can come together and do? Any experience from any country which you have seen, any case study internationally, something which you would like to suggest to the government, how it can help? Maybe.
Yes, I would feel like I have closely now. Why I could innovate on this packaging is because I had the opportunity of being trained in tea under Sri Lankan tea experts. So I have seen how they pay so much of attention to smaller things in tea, just not tea, whether it is their infrastructure, the warehousing, whether it is the way they communicate, whether it is the packaging, what they do. So, that really plays an advantage, which presently we Indians are lacking on that, so if we could improve. So branding in terms of B2B is just not about the product. It is an overall thing what we need to market, we need to sell it. So, the kind of standards has to be an overall thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we focus as an industry, so that would give an advantage. Like for an example, when we say, oh, the product is made in USA, we automatically have a mindset, wow, this product will be so good. When we talk about Indian IT leaders, we know, oh, wow, they are so good. When we talk about Indian intellect, global CEOs are Indians. So, for our products, we have started the journey, we are progressing, but there is a long way to go.
Right. You're right. Actually, in the realm of digitization, we are seeing so many news about India actually doing better than all the other countries when it comes to the pace of digitization. So there are areas where we are standing out, and we should leverage that.
Yes.
Thank you, Sonam, for your insights. I'd like to come to Madhumita now, because Madhumita presents a kind of a different growth journey, because Luxe Living has been doing private labeling for brands, and now is moving into its own branding space as well. So, Madhumita, can you start by telling us the business model of Luxe Living, how it has started its growth journey since inception?
Yes, Viraji, thank you so much, and good afternoon to everybody who's listening in to us. So it's been a very engaging talk till now. Sirs have really emphasized on certain very, very important points where branding in the international market is concerned. So I, as a design professional, as I was sharing with you, I come from a very different industry of interior architecture. And I was practicing for almost 16 years when this idea kind of hit me one fine day, because we were sourcing our entire home furnishing soft goods products for our clients, for our in-house clients, and we were just going to all these shops that were selling those goods, big brand stores that we were going to. So Luxe Living suddenly took shape, wherein we thought, why don't we use the crafts that we have in plenty here in Bengal and use them as home furnishings for our projects, because they are the first line of customers, and it would be so easy to get through to them and make a conscious effort into teaching people or into letting people know that these things exist and these could be monetized, or these could be used as home furnishing products in their houses, and for a very nominal kind of a rate, rather than going in for the kind of things that were being sold. So that is how the entire seed of Luxe Living was born. So now it has been a very tough uphill climb, because here we were dealing with an entire cottage industry, the grassroots level artisans and craftsmen that needed to be put into a certain system so that we could deliver to international clients. So as I told you, it was more of a idea that hit us that yes, nobody in the family, but in fact, nobody to guide us at that point of time, guide me at that point of time to being an exporter. So exporting क्या होता है, documentation क्या होता है, हर चीज का एक implication होता है. Got to know just that. Other than that, it was a huge dive into this huge ocean. But anyway, so we started out with artisans and craftsmen, and we wanted to explain to them that this is how it needs to be done. They did not have any sense of time. They did not have any sense of quality. I wouldn't say any sense of quality. They did have sense of quality, but they didn't know as to what quality to deliver where, or which product to deliver at what point of time. Crafts, they were experts in it. Like we deal in Jamdani. We are making almost 10,000 meters of Jamdani fabric every quarter. So that's a big deal, where coming in from a different industry, and we were dealing with all these artisans, more than 300 of them at this point of time, and delivering it to global clients is a big thing. So we had to first engage them into understanding what quality is. We had to first engage them into understanding what timelines and deadlines are, keeping in fact all the checks that needed to be done about the kind of tiny bits, like we are supplying to the Japan market. So even a tiny bit of foreign yarn coming into a scarf is a rejection. So even if a pom-pom on a side of a scarf has one thread going in different direction, that's a rejection. So, and we are dealing with handlooms, mind you. We are dealing with almost 98% of our products are handloom products. So that itself was like a uncharted territory for in the global market. So we had to keep in check all these things. It has been a tough journey. But I remember the first time we put up a stall, Luxe Living started out, the business model you asked, Viraji, right? So business model was no clue. Let me tell you very honestly, no clue at all, because I tried to emulate other businesses or study them. I did research for 3 years before I set out in 2016, got my IC and things done. So these 3 years were spent in just serving. I used to take a morning flight, go out, visit a fair, just come back with loads of data and observation, and then do my research as to what those companies are doing and how they are doing it. So what the first time we participated in a international craft exhibition in Delhi, the buyer that comes to us, the lady, she already says, I have been to Fulia, I have worked with them, so I know what you are doing here, but your product is stupendous. So I want it, and I don't want to go to Fulia again. So you be my point of contact. So that being 2016 and this being 2023, we are still working with the same buyer. The volumes have increased many folds, the kind of product that we have been delivering to her, and she kind of escalating her business to a different level altogether. That is success for us. If she is doing better, we are doing better. My artisans are doing better. So it gives me great pride in saying that throughout the lockdown, we have done better. We have doubled our revenues. So thanks to all my team members, thanks to all the artisans who came forward and did whatever they did for us. But then handlooms, handicrafts, especially hand weaving, whatever Bengal offers is unparalleled to the world. I'm not saying, I'm not demeaning anything, undervaluing anything that India has to offer. India has incredible potential where handlooms are concerned or handicrafts are concerned. And if we start branding them, like we were doing white labeling, private labeling for all our clients, B2B model of business. Now we are coming out with a B2C kind of a business, wherein I have been to all these platforms, all these exhibitions, wherein the products were appreciated to such great lengths that the buyer itself asks me, or even if they have not turned a buyer, they ask me as to how can I procure your products? So is it available online? Is it available anywhere else? Is there a store? What is it? So this started happening right from 2017 or 18. And that got us thinking as to, if we are doing it, why not do it on a small scale, because it's again an investment. The business model is different, and investments have to go into the entire branding part of things. Like Sir said, it is an investment, not a kharcha, but then MSMEs, we take a few hiccups and then we kind of try and understand as to whether this is going to be a good ROI for us or not, even for a budding business like ours. So yes, so we decided to take that plunge, and now we are coming out with our own brands called Mula, which is root, because we are dealing with the roots of the Indian hand wovens, and Alia, which is home for home decor products. So these are the brands, and the brand strategies for these are again going to be very different from what we had for our B2B business. But yes, we are investing into it, and we are going to go ahead with it.
Right. Thank you, Madhumita. That's a very interesting problem you're trying to solve. I also think that the kind of exclusivity which Indian handicrafts provide, they deserve to be promoted better globally.
Yes.
So, what are the branding strategies you envisage at this stage, from market selection to positioning your product and establishing a strong brand equity? I guess e-commerce would play a very strong role.
Yes, definitely e-commerce is going to play a very strong role. But if we are thinking pan-India basis, then there are lots of these curated shows that are happening post-pandemic. Even if before pandemic it was there, but then post-pandemic people have kind of opened up. I mean, people have got so much time, had so much time on their hands that they went out full length into their mobile phones or the digital world, and they tried to find out unique things that India had to offer. And during this whole time, there were lots of brands that took shape. Now, again, issue did come up as to a lot of spurious things happening. So there has to be a check, which is very important, because again, the artisans themselves are very motivated into selling their own goods, but they have got some shortcomings there. So either they are not able to keep the quality intact, or they are not able to keep the timeline intact, or their commitments are failed. So these things have to be modulated, and not that they shouldn't be doing direct selling, they should be, but then if these things are checked, because otherwise India ka image kharab ho raha hai, Bengal ka image kharab ho raha hai, the product ka image kharab ho raha hai. So keeping all these things in mind, deconstructing the whole story of the goods that are being made, we need to understand that whenever we are doing e-commerce, we need to tell them that this is the traceability that you can go back on. We are trying to do that via technology. So the traceability of the goods, the weaver who is doing it, the stitcher who is making the goods. So all these things have to be there, and for the customer at the click of a button, so that the person knows the authenticity of the product that they are buying. So here, if I am selling a piece of garment, I am very particular about the fact that the pricing of the garment will be cost to cost, and of course with a profit to me and all the persons involved in the supply chain. But then it is not going to be exaggerated, so that at the end of the day, the person who's buying it reduces the chance of buying it twice. So for me, it has to be a sustainable thing, because we are adhering to 14 of the 17 SDGs. So I represented India at the 12th ministerial conference in Geneva, and it was a very, very important decision that was taken, that yes, women in business need to be this is again gender parity that we're talking about. Women in business need to be particular about this, that whatever they are offering, their business has to be trustworthy, it has to be authentic, it has to be something which is offering value to the customer. So unless until we are falling back on these principles, then the entire concept of e-commerce or anything, I don't think it's going to be sustainable if I'm not following these principles in the long run. So again, yes, e-commerce is going to be a very viable kind of a channel for me as a brand to market my products. Other than that, there are going to be a lot of these pop-up shops that have taken shape, that the culture is again catching up. There are a lot of in-store kind of multi-designer store, which we are approaching at the moment, pan-India, who are going to stock our products. So yes, it's an ongoing exercise, and that's how we intend to do it as our own brand.
That's great, Madhumita. It seems like a logical progression, because you've understood the market very well and the product very well over the initial years. I would now like to come to Asha, Sampath. Ma'am, we've listened to the industry representatives on the panel, so I would like to know your views on how you have found a branding strategy for MSMEs more challenging or different from established firms, and what kind of approaches have you followed as a consultant? When you're on mute, please.
Yeah, thank you, Viratji, for having me here, and good afternoon to all the viewers. Yeah, I have had the opportunity to be associated both with MSMEs and a few established organizations with their branding initiatives. And basically, I think all my co-panelists have given tremendous insights into the challenges. So I will not go into repeating all of those. But I think the branding maturity, if I were to say on a scale of 1 to 5, for MSMEs, it would be anywhere between 1 to 3. And for established organizations, it could be somewhere between 4 and 5. So basically, when it comes to MSMEs, I have encountered 3 challenges. The first challenge is to convince the management on the buy-in for branding itself, because I think most of the times they look at it as an avoidable investment. I mean, I think there is a level of maturity where they feel that yes, it's not a cost, it is an investment, but they still think that it is an avoidable investment and not a strategic investment. So the first challenge is to explain to them, help them envision how they can benefit from branding in terms of positioning themselves, in terms of communicating their value proposition, in terms of reaching out to a larger audience, in terms of generating inbound leads, in terms of achieving premium pricing, and in terms of at some point of time increasing their own valuations when they want to exit their businesses. So the challenge is quite strong, especially when it comes to the first generation entrepreneurs. So the getting a buy-in is the first and foremost challenge. And even after we get a buy-in, I think the maturity level in terms of the willingness, there is still an inertia to go back to the traditional marketing approaches and not embrace the digital marketing approach. So actually, I generally recommend a combination of a traditional marketing and digital marketing when it comes to especially the B2B buying segments, because I think it's not a good idea to suggest a complete replacement of traditional marketing with digital marketing, because the emotional connect with the touch points, which are in fact more than B2C in a B2B, have to be nurtured. So I think a combination does work well. So trying to explain how a combo can help them achieve a better ROI is something that I normally recommend. But the third challenge, of course, remains the bandwidth. So most MSMEs do have a shoestring budget, and getting them to allocate a budget for their branding and marketing strategies is definitely a challenge. But the way to go about it would be to explain to them how, my senior co-panelists, Dr. Rajendra, Prasad, and Dr. Suneja were mentioning, branding is not necessarily a huge expenditure in terms of TV ads or celebrity branding. In a digital era, there are a lot of things that can actually be achieved in a very budget-friendly way. And the way to go about is to start doing the small basic things in terms of having an online presence. You don't have to spend a huge amount on your website or your online presence, right? A moderate budget will still suffice for a start. And once you get a traction with those investments, you can always flow back some of the returns back into digital marketing for a phase 2. So I normally recommend a phased out investment strategy for branding for MSMEs. So when it comes to differences in approach between MSMEs and established organizations, clearly for MSMEs, I have to start at a very different level, which is a very basic level at the scratch, building an online presence for them, and then helping them with a little bit of content marketing strategies, then helping them to communicate their value propositions, let's say through testimonials from their own customers, which is not going to cost them a lot of money. So there are a lot of innovative ways we can actually help MSMEs brand themselves initially. So because the digital maturity levels are also very low, I think the initial stage of branding is quite a challenge when it comes to MSMEs. But when we work with established organizations, obviously they have gone through that phase. They have already evolved, right? So we start at a much higher level, and there the focus is more on being more creative in communicating the value proposition, then helping them repositioning themselves to another level from where they are today. And of course, when it comes to exports and people who are present internationally, there are also other challenges, such as today we talk of sustainability, we talk of data privacy, we talk of accessibility. So those are the areas that we need to be very prepared to address when we work with established organizations, because they have already evolved through the initial stages. So for me to position myself as a brand consultant also, I will have to make sure that I am ready to deliver a higher level of value proposition to the established organizations to make sure that their own brand equity is well protected in various areas, such as the ones that I just mentioned.
Right, indeed. Indeed. Also, I would like to know, when you talk to your, prospective customers or current customers, when it comes to the topic of branding, what are the kind of questions they ask, or what is the kind of return they are typically seeking? Are they asking the right questions? That's what I wanted to know.
Sometimes we'll have to help them articulate a problem, because most of the time, especially in the MSME segment, they would not know what their problem is. Sometimes we'll have to tell them how branding can help them, and I won't go into that because that has extensively been covered already. But I think the hand-holding that they need is in terms of how to go about the branding strategy, how to identify resources to make sure that there is a very well thought out investment and a good ROI for what they are doing, rather than just burn money, because MSMEs obviously have a constraint. And the third one is to also help them with data analytics to find out which are the target segments in terms of customer audience profile, or the geographical segment where it's worthwhile to invest on branding and generate an ROI for them. So basically, when we work with MSMEs, we'll actually have to take on a role of an entrepreneur, I would say, where we fully involve into their team and deep dive into their business, understand the gaps, understand their concerns, and then help them address those in a very, like as part of their team members. Only then they get the confidence that, yeah, we are in safe hands. Otherwise, they feel that, oh, somebody is taking them for a ride, right? And they're apprehensive to invest in branding. So I think when it comes to MSMEs, I think they need a very friendly approach and a very genuine approach to, and a passionate approach, I would say, to make sure that we are committed to seeing them succeed. So, and that helps in creating the awareness and also breaking that inertia not to invest in branding. And once they start to see the ROI, then I think it just goes on. And then the rest becomes history. Because they'll also start to see the benefits. In fact, one of the clients that I'm working with right now is a MSME client, and I have been associated with them for 2 years. And when I started working with them, of course, I went through the whole process of understanding. Of course, in that case, it was more of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Everybody is doing branding, so we are not doing anything in branding. So how can we also get into it? So that was the starting conversation point. And I was very happy, of course, to see them in that position. So they were very candid about their budget constraints. So we started in a very small way. And 1 year down the line, I'm so happy that they're coming back to me saying that, what's a CRM? How can we implement a CRM? How can we do marketing automation? We would also like to be doing search engine optimization. So they're realizing that all these things will pay off. But at the end of the day, I think the most important point is the cost of acquisition of a customer today in digital era is many times cheaper than the cost of acquisition from the traditional marketing, right? And you're reaching out to a larger global audience. You're reaching out to a target audience that's specific for you. We are generating inbound leads. We are staying connected with the customer. We are trying to understand their pain points better today. So there are immense benefits from branding, and things are evolving. 2 years earlier, I had one of my articles about why MSMEs need branding was published in Hindu Business Line. So my own perspective then and my perspective today has changed, because MSMEs are really seeing the value that branding can give them in the longer perspective.
Thank you, ma'am. That's indeed very encouraging to know, because I think the first question you should be asking while branding is, am I the kind of entity the customer will buy from? And from there, you can, probably answer those questions. What is it that is unique about me, or which is special about me, that the customer will be confident in buying from me? Dr. Sharma, your views on B2B and B2C branding, how in exports the strategy can be different and probably the approach can be different.
Yeah, the only difference that, is possible between the two, you see, let's try and understand how the markets are different. B2C, 8 billion people, each one of them as an individual is a B2C consumer. Okay, B2B, sector-wise, industry-wise, you can count them on your fingertips. If you manufacture tires and car tires, then automobile manufacturers, I can list them here, right? So they are few, but they buy large volumes, right? And B2C, they buy small volumes. B2C needs constant reminder. B2B needs more relationship. They say partner with me. Okay, so from supplier, vendor to partner, that kind of a status. So it's a relationship. And every brand is a personality, whether it's a B2B or B2C. I was reading through the chat questions people are discussing there. They are talking of trust. So biggest thing that every brand must inculcate is in a sense of assurance in the buyer that, look, you can trust me. And I will say point blank, because I outrightly stated earlier also that many exporters, for just one container load of business, they overcommit and then they are unable to deliver. That's why somewhere I said, use the phrase that brand is a promise. You need to deliver that, you need to fulfill it. So if we don't break that, B2B, it's taken care of. But B2C, what happens? B2C, your customer becomes the advocate, spreads it viral, and then they are the biggest marketing department that you can have. In B2B, maybe that is difficult unless you give me a testimonial, because if I ask you, Viratji, can you recommend me to somebody else? Then you'll say, oh, this component is my competitive advantage. How can I have my competitor buying the same raw material or same something? So it could be difficult in that case, but the challenges are more or less the same. And today in B2B too, the elements, like if a company is purpose driven, like Madhumita said, that loves to buy from artisans or those who follow fair practices, fair trade practices, etc. Those elements are vital even in B2B, right? So the essence of branding does not change B2B or B2C. It's all about that value proposition. We need to design that value proposition pretty well, that differentiation element well. Is my product different? Is my service different? Is my delivery going to be different? Are my people different? Are my channels different? In B2C, a lot of channels are emerging. In B2B, still, the biggest channel is personal selling. So you can't really much do about it, even if it is over digital channels, but I have to meet you virtually to understand your requirements, etc. In B2B, because relationships are not built that way. So therefore, but one thing in B2C, brand communities become very important. For example, Harley Owners Group. For example, any group, Dove Beauty Campaign. And you see how each consumer virals and spreads disseminates the message and becomes the marketing department. So it can be free publicity for the brand in B2C if consumers love you, but you need that emotional connect. But in case of B2B, this relationship is more like a marriage, and this needs to be carried in that particular way. Here again, emotional connect is there, but don't expect that customer to advocate your services and products to your their competitors. That's the only difference which I can think of, Viratji, at the moment. But ultimately, it boils down to two things: image and recognition. You are also touching upon the national brand, and you're asking if there are examples. Japan is a fantastic example of national brand. In case of consumer durables, you see, as a country, I still respect, I would always respect them, because 1945, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, they were devastated. They had nothing. They have nothing. In fact, raw materials, etc. What do they have as compared to India? We have freshwater rivers and everything. We have good body language. We are good at English as compared to Japanese. But you look at, even in one category of the products, air conditioners, Hitachi to Daikin to O General to Panasonic to Mitsubishi to, they are ruling the world, and I think it's all because of brands. Sony, Honda, Komatsu, all these are brands, and doesn't mean only the names. What it means is that don't promise unnecessarily, and if you're promising, please deliver it. Stand true to your commitment so that you can be trusted by the world. And I think these kind of ethical and product and personal qualities go a long way in building the brand.
Right, sir. That's a good point you brought in, because I remember the day Toyota dethroned GM as the largest automaker in the world. That was big news in the 2 decades back, because American cars were always leading the global markets till then. Dr. Suneja, sir, as your specialty is analysis and synthesis of a lot of ideas, so how did you feel about the discussion in the session today, and your remarks on how branding can help Indian companies go international?
Yeah, I think that's been a brilliant session. My own name, Vivek, means Viv is several, Ek is one. So first Ek ko Viv karo, analysis. Or phir Viv ko Ek karo, synthesis. And analysis and plus synthesis is wisdom, which my wife claims I don't have, but you are a more generous audience. I think it's been brilliant. I think to weave together what Dr. Sharma and all the other three brilliant entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs happen to be women. That's a pattern I've noticed. Maybe women have greater attention to detail, whether it comes to the clothes or to facial expressions. We men are more gung-ho. And I think you need to pay attention to detail if you're going to brand. So, and you're going to become an entrepreneur. But we are the theory guys. So theoretically, I think three aspects I can weave from the discussion. Three things you need. One, you need differentiated products of high quality. So first, that means you must have the competence for that. It's not a question of just marketing. Can you make a high-end mobile phone? Can you make an Apple phone? Can you make a washing machine which is superb? Dr. Sharma was saying air conditioners. Can you make an air conditioner which is much better than the local variant? Now that competence is in R&D. India has amongst the lowest R&D percentage in the corporate sector in the whole world, right? So are we going to invest in R&D, in product design? We have the second highest number of engineers, IITs and so on. But all of them are in IIFT and FMS selling soap. They're not engineering guys doing R&D. So the first thing is create products which are differentiated and have high product attributes, right? Then you build a brand around it. That's one. Secondly, build quality into it. As Dr. Sharma was saying, or with tea or any other thing, you know, Japan used to be made fun of. Raj Kapoor, the Gana tha na, my topi or juta Japani, I forget which part was
Patloon, Hindustani.
Patloon, yeah. So you have to get your quality up. Number 3, integrity. Are you willing to give up the short-run gains for the long-term benefits? So the question of integrity. And 4th, if you have all that, you have competence to make differentiated products, you can assure quality in your own production lines, you have integrity, how do you communicate it? I'm honest, but why would you believe me? You can't distinguish between an honest SME and a non-honest SME. So that's where communication comes in, promotion, branding comes in. And I think there are essentially 2 ways of branding, 2 ways of communicating your reputation. A brand is a reputation. So how do you make a reputation? I think 2 ways. One is use a lot of money. Talk is cheap. If I send an email to you saying, I have this product, it's great quality, and I bombard it, will you believe it? Why would you? It costs nothing to send an email. But if I do it on the front page of Times of India and I have to pay a huge amount of money, then I have an incentive to be honest. Because if I cheat now, people will spread the word on Facebook. They won't buy again. It's a visible product. Everybody is seeing that ad. So there's a common focal point. You know, Suneja, air conditioners, and it didn't work. So it goes through on Facebook. But if there's Suneja on an individual email, the word won't get around. So once I've spent a lot of money, which is why ads, the amount of money that large, not MSMEs, but large companies spend, is because once they spend so much money, it's in the incentive to be honest. And people realize so they can trust. You know, you trust a person simply. The classic paper on quality assurance is by an economist called Nelson, and his paper was called Advertising as Information versus Quality Assurance. You spend lots of money and therefore people will believe you. That's one method. But not everybody can spend a lot of money. So how else do you do it? Well, you do it through word of mouth, as Professor Prasad was saying, and others. People buy your product, they can spread the message around, right? Or you buy in small quantities. If there's risk, then you know, people will buy a small batch, and then they find the product is good. They might say, okay, we'll give you a bigger order. So there's a word of mouth. There is sampling that goes around. And as Professor Prasad was saying, there's a difference between B2B and B2C, because in B2B, you wouldn't want to tell people that this guy is good because he's a competitor. But in B2C, why not tell my neighbor or my brother that this is a good product? So word of mouth is critical. And if word of mouth is critical, networks are critical. You know, on the Amazon marketplace or the Flipkart marketplace, a lot of small retailers, after all, these are marketplace models in India largely, you won't buy from them individually. So they free ride on the reputation of Amazon or on Flipkart. Amazon is the reputation broker, if you like, right? And then all of them sell through Amazon. So with MSMEs, I guess, you can have associations, or NASSCOM does it for IT sector and so forth. You use a nodal organization or you know, Infosys, all our success stories, Wipro. These people were, you know, people working in America, right? That's how the branding happened. They were working there. They come back to India. They contact people whom they had been working with, and slowly the word spreads. That's how Infosys, Wipro were built, through networks, through personal communication. So I don't think we should underestimate the importance of the word of mouth. And so traditional and digital need to go together, as I think Asha ji was saying. You need to combine those. They are complementary, not necessarily substitutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, that was one question which was asked, whether print will be a thing of the past, or will it be? Obviously, it will be something really depending on where your audience is and the cost-benefit analysis which you do of print versus digital. There's one question on the cultural attributes and how your branding needs to adapt to the specific target market. So, any insights on that, Dr. Sharma, sir?
Yeah, here the only insight is that, there is a talk about global branding. And somebody in the chat also said one size fitting all, kind of.
Right.
Now that may be okay for certain brands which are already global, like McD, Pepsi, Coke, etc. Right. But in case of B2B branding and all, and that too particularly for an MSME, we need cultural sensitivity. What if my brand name is meaning and is construed something else, and particularly vulgar in a foreign country? In that cultural context, we need to be aware about it. So there are, loopholes, there are pros and cons of global branding. I think we can approach regional branding, we can approach country specific branding. There is no harm in that. If you find a sizable market, and because our promotional strategies are rather different in different countries. So in that case, for an MSME, I suggest that cultural sensitivity is something that to be guarded. Okay, there are tools available to understand how a particular country's culture rates in terms of individuality, in terms of masculinity, in terms of its indulgence, long-term orientation, short-term orientation, so that we do not make a mistake in communicating. For example, Japan is high on uncertainty avoidance. They want to know uncertainty as such. Now, if I communicate with a Japanese buyer, like, typical communication with an Indian buyer, that as soon as possible, thank you for your order, as soon as possible, we'll try to dispatch from our manufacturing plant. Now, this as soon as possible is not to be understood by Japanese. They don't understand what is as soon as possible. When is that? Okay, so you need to be pretty precise, and we can't cut a sorry figure, later on. So we need to be clear. And I think while branding, naming, and designing our entire communication, this cultural sensitivity and some understanding of the language is rather very important. We should make some effort that, okay, will my brand not be construed as something else in that particular cultural context? So
right.
That much piece of advice.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. There's just one last question from the audience, which I think we can take up. It's about the MSMEs with short-term vision, which take advances but never deliver good and greed. In the sense, any reason why they are doing some unethical practice and spoiling the image, but I really don't know what solutions we have at this moment to prevent something like this from happening. Any suggestions from the panel?
Can I say something?
Yes, sir. Please.
The only suggestion is that, there shouldn't be a desperation on the part of the MSME. The guys who acquire an import-export code IEC from DGFT, they sometimes get so desperate that, I somehow, by hook or crook, by any means, I want to be dispatching and catering to international business. I think that as an attitude should be stopped. Okay, no hurry. Kindly check, as Suneja have also established this point very clearly, emphasized that product quality, please ensure that. Okay, then show samples. And once you show samples, then you ensure that your final dispatch is also, as per the samples that they have shown. Now here, somebody, I'm just talking about the trading mentality, typical mentality. Well, this does not apply to all. So you excuse me if I talk very crude, but my experience with the exporters, some guys, they unscrupulously try to make money in the first deal itself. So for example, I know a spice trader, I won't name them, but what they did was they exported something wherein the quality wasn't as good as the sample. So this is where, the country's name and, all that, even the industry suffers, that Indian spices don't order the, the particularly loose spices and things like that. So basically, that's where, you know, we suffered, and we happened to export only the whole spices. Now, whole spices, Viraj, if you export turmeric, you don't get that much price as you get in exporting powder, value added, you know. So some value addition requires that you must convert into paste or something like that. But then somebody should trust me, and that trust can happen only when branding is done, like Everest or MDH or this or that or whatever. So I think this is very important, and the exporters and MSMEs particularly should avoid this desperation of getting that one container load of first order execution. I think that needs to go away. Rest, everything can, you know, fall in place.
Sir, I would like to, Viraji, I would like to continue with what Sir has said. And this is very true. In terms of export, we always go in the greed of, you know, whenever we get an order, we just want to do it. Where, you know, we should lay emphasis on our SOPs, on the quality. And I would like to say that, you know, it's always better to maintain relations than to accept a bad deal. Personally, I have had the experience, like, you know, since it did not meet my product costs, I walked off from that deal, and this buyer I was dealing with decades. But my competitors, they wanted to undercut, they offered them a competitive price, but which was not correct price for the product. Unfortunately, they got substandard quality, but at that point of time, I was not lured in taking to the deal. That buyer again came back to me, and we are enjoying such good relations. So to sum it up, you know, that desperation should not be there with we exporters, and we should try to maintain relation, and, you know, we should not have that greed.
You know, there's this old saying which says reputation arrives on a tortoise, but departs on a horseback. Reputation arrives on a tortoise, but departs on a horseback. That's true at every level. You want to form a friendship. A friend is someone you trust and one who trusts you. It may take a lifetime to develop a friendship. It may take one incident to destroy it. So I think enlightened self-interest is where you forego short-term cheating gains so that in the long term, so it's still self-interest. Altruism is still self-interest because it has just a longer payback period. I think we also forget that, you know, till 1800, India was the world's foremost exporter of manufactured products. I'm not just talking about spices, textile products. I mean, East India Trading Company came to India to trade, not to sell British textiles. So right from 1600, where they established the first warehouse, which they called factory in Surat, after taking permission from Aurangzeb, right up to the Battle of Plassey in 1757, all they were doing is trading Indian products. And so we have a long history of exports, by the way. I remember going to Wordsworth's house, the great poet, in Ambleside in England. And, you know, the guide showed me a safe. And he said, you know what Wordsworth kept in this? And people were guessing gold and this. And the answer was Indian tea and spices, right? So, ma'am, we have a long history of selling premium products, and there were extensive brokerage systems, money changed hands many times, and it was all done on trust. So we need to regain some of it's not something just because in between 1940 and 1970 we weren't exporting. We have a long history of trading relationships. So, but it's been brilliant listening to everybody, especially the entrepreneurs. I mean, Dr. Sharma and I are, of course, both theoretical guys, but the people who actually take the plunge and you grapple with the real, I think there's great lessons to be learned from that. And I think a sharing needs to take place, which is, I'm glad that this is here and people are listening, because I think we need to learn from each other when it comes to experience. Because these are common problems that all Indian companies will face. So it's good to have a community of knowledge and learning.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So I think we're just out of time now because of, we're thinking of scheduling this around 1 hour to 1 hour, 15 minutes. So thank you so much, everybody, for participating in this session. It has really been fantastic to listen to all of you and inspiring. And I hope the audience has taken some very useful takeaways from this session. And of course, this is just one of the many sessions. We would like to, continue such kind of discussions and which are of relevance to the industry. And look forward to having all of you again sometime. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Viratji. The best part was the audience was also discussing themselves.
Oh yes.
Other than listening and simply asking questions. So there was a discussion thread going on, and I'm impressed with that. So the audience also was trying to convince others. They were raising questions and answering themselves, and that was also something, an interesting feature.
Right.
And indeed a pleasure. Asha ji, Sonam, Madhumita, Sir, Dr. Suneja Sahab, pleasure meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Audience, any questions if the audience has, you can share them to our email ID, and we'll be happy to, connect you with the experts and get their responses on that. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.